Contra 4. Oh, man. You know, I love the Contra series of games. And wow, you know, to think. I mean, I know there's DS emulators out there and Nintendo DS emulators out there and all that. But shit, is it great to have a nice, you know, real 3DS and you can just pop in that Contra 4 cartridge and away you go. You know, it's amazing. A lot of Nintendo DS games, they sell for a fucking premium. Like Chrono Trigger right now is ironically, well, I can tell you why I think this happened. By the way, welcome to your Wednesday Sovereign Tech Q&A. We've got a lot to get to, okay? But I was rocking some Contra 4 and shit, I mean, what a great game. But, you know, it's interesting, like Chrono Trigger, whatever people want to call it, Chrono Trigger. That's what I've been calling it for years. This is arguably the greatest RPG ever, depending upon, you know, who you ask. Okay. I'm a huge fan of the Dragon Quest series specifically. I love Dragon Quest 4, or when I played it as a kid, it was called Dragon Warrior 4. But anyway, Chrono Trigger. So it got released on PC recently. They did a huge re-release and it was just a fucking botch job. You know, you can buy the game new for like $20 on just about any platform out there today. But it was such a botched job. I think everybody went and bought the Nintendo DS version of the game, you know, because the price for it just skyrocketed to like $50-$60 for a copy of this game. And I think it did that because everybody's like, well, fuck, you know, the only way to get a great version of this, and for some reason it wasn't on the SNES Classic, which, yeah, I don't understand it either. But, you know, that people are paying the price. I mean, hey, you know, I'm telling you, that 3DS... that system's going to be around for a good long while, and just the fact that it can play DS games, and some of those games have yet to really be released on other platforms, and we now know that Nintendo's not really going to do a virtual console. Man, I mean, the 3DS is their only modern supported system that actually has a virtual console on it, right? Because they're not technically supporting the Wii U so much. Interesting times, to say the least. By the way, the NES Classic, not the SNES Classic that I just mentioned, but the NES Classic that most people couldn't get their hands on, they are re-releasing it on June 29th. And they're claiming they're going to have stock that goes all the way to Christmas this year, which will be interesting because I'm expecting them to release some new classic console this year, specifically to take on whatever, you know, Sega comes out with, which we talked about how they are going to come out with a Mega Drive Mini, along with anybody else. I mean, it would only make sense if they either come out with a Game Boy Classic or even an N64 Classic, which would just go through the roof. And honestly, if I'm honest with myself, you can, you know, say you had the limit of 16 to 30 games on a Nintendo 64, which is the range in which the classic systems that Nintendo has released so far has had on there. You could have every good game, okay, that was made for the N64 within 30 games. I mean, you really could. I mean, I'd love to see, you know, obviously, you know, Conker's Bad Fur Day belongs on there, Banjo-Kazooie, you know, Donkey Kong 64. I would love to see the original Sin and Punishment. That should be on there because the sequel game, Star Successor for the Wii, was awesome. You know, and I think GoldenEye belongs on there, Perfect Dark. I mean, you know, and to say nothing of, you know, obviously Mario 64, you know, and all that. But, you know, those are the common ones. But you could really fit like every game that was actually worth playing on the N64 onto, you know, an N64 Classic. So hopefully that'll happen. Anyway, little bit of news, okay? This is exciting. So I've gotten a lot of great response. I'm really honored by people that have very much enjoyed, and I mean, literally by the day, I am getting more people signing up for the Sovereign Tech newsletter at all times. I'm really glad about this because it is the way that I am guaranteed to always be able to get in touch with you, or as guaranteed as anything could be. You know, websites can come and go, services can shut down, but email is always email. Not to quote Captain Kirk or anything there, but people love the newsletter. I got a couple people unsubscribed. I think total, I've had like 5 people unsubscribe out of hundreds of people that have signed up. And but people keep coming on board, and most people don't seem to mind the erotic fiction and everything. And I've actually gotten great response on the erotic fiction. People saying, "Oh man, wow, can you write? Wow, I love the story. Wow, what a turn on, etc., etc." I'm really honored by that. One problem with the newsletter that I've known about for a while. So there's 2 or 3 things I want to talk about here quick that I'll probably get into. I might talk about at some point on a Prime episode. But if you want to give me any feedback on this, you the patrons, because I consider you executive producers, I would appreciate it. I'm well aware that there are a ton of typos and little mistakes and errors here and there within the newsletter. Often enough, at least over the past year, or really ever since it started, after the first couple issues, like I took on some new clients that, really have had, taken on a lot of my time. And because of that, like it was, really being able to get the newsletter out in a timely fashion. I had to switch to doing it 1 per month and all this, but getting out in a timely fashion required me to I couldn't give it its due. Like it's like, okay, no, we got to get it out. We got to get it out. And, you never let perfect be the enemy of the good, right? But because the newsletter's so popular and the short fiction so popular, and like Stephanie, like she talked about how me, her, and Ellen, could perform the short fiction in audio form. Like I want the newsletter to be taken a lot more seriously. And of course, there's a lot of stuff going on with Sovereign Tech, all of which is coming out over time. We have new audio, The Ancients. We got and I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Hyperchronius 2. I mean, and a lot of actual, and then we have the actual audio theater, the Star Trek erotic audio theater, and still the holiday special, which hell, you might end up with 2 this year. We've got all that to do. Okay. I've talked about this actually for like the past 2 or 3 years. Sovereign Tech needs help. I mean, as in it needs an assistant. Like Sovereign Tech needs volunteers / employees. You know what I mean? And so now, while I've been bringing on co-hosts, and that's worked out very well, in my opinion, and in yours. I mean, now there's even a name for the episodes when it's me, Ellen, and Stephanie. You're now calling them the best episodes because, of course, BEST is an acronym that stands for Brian, Ellen, and Stephanie. BEST. And so honored by that. We're all 3 of us are so honored by that. We love that you love what we're doing, and because we have a lot of fun doing it, and it's such a it's a great time. But anyway, so we're bringing on co-hosts, but now like there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that frankly I need help with. But I'm going to be bringing on, an editor for the newsletter to make sure that all the P's and Q's are minded finally with the time that I don't have. So this is going to be really great. I'm really excited about who it is. I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be just really cool, and it's going to help take the newsletter to the next level. But here's the other point. So we'll get all that cleaned up, and that way, because I'm an avid reader. I understand how it works. When you see typos and shit like this, it takes you out. It takes you out of the story. It kills the illusion that's going on. And based upon what you tell me, they're great stories, and everything else that's going on in there is great. And so when you get taken out of it, yeah, it sucks. I get it. So I want to fix that. So that's going to get fixed. So bringing on an editor, that's going to be cool. But a couple other points I want to bring up quick with the Sovereign Tech newsletter. So we'll talk about this in a minute, but I'll address it a little bit in a minute. In light of certain things as late, okay, for example, e-fail and whatever else. Like I said, I'll mention that again in a minute. And actually for other reasons too. And this is one of the things that I'd really like to get feedback from you on. Like, does the newsletter have to have all the flash that it has? I look at, because obviously I do my research whenever I'm going to jump into a new venture, which in the newsletter was a new venture. A lot of, in fact, I think I mentioned this in a recent Sovereign Tech Prime episode where Kevin Rose, his newsletter, like he gets tons and tons, he has, I don't know, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of signups for his newsletter. Of course, granted, he's Kevin Rose, right? And he has this really great open rate, etc., blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know if he's gotten lazy or what's been going on exactly with that newsletter, but there's like nothing to it. It's all black and white. There's no real flash. There's nothing, it doesn't look very fancy and everything, but he still gets plenty of subscribers. So I'm kind of wondering, and in light of certain things that have come, that have been addressed in email recently, even though this doesn't exactly, that e-fail doesn't exactly pertain to this. I wonder, I mean, it does and it doesn't. Like, I'm wondering if maybe the newsletter should just be the content. I mean, it pretty much text and that's about it. None of the big pictures, none of the wild design and all that. Just make it a good old fashioned text-based newsletter. Because I mean, the main thing I think that most people get the newsletter for is they want the short fiction, right? They want to read the hotness. They want the erotic fiction at the end, which great. Like, that's one of the primary things I do it for, is to put that out there. Okay. And for it to be more or less plain text, it can do that. Like that nothing would get in the way of that. So let me know. The reason I say that is, let me know, since we're changing things up, bringing on an editor or whatever, let me know if, do you need it to be flashy? Does it need to look really good? I mean, I put a lot of work into it, to make it look that, like it does. Okay. And it doesn't always come out perfect. And like I said, up until recently, I haven't been able to like really like double check everything to make sure everything lines up and looks right. But all of anything that's been done can be done in, plain text format, more or less. Okay. In the newsletter. So I'd like your feedback on that. The other thing I want feedback on is, well, a couple things. One is there a certain kind of content that you get in there that you want more of? Like, do you want more than 3 videos? I'm curious to know what more you want, or like what's missing, or what isn't necessary within the newsletter, all of that. Like, I could really use your reviews, okay, on the newsletter, and your insights. Okay. Just to know. I mean, I might not change anything, but I'd like to know. Like, it's helpful for me to hear what other people are interested in, as far as that goes. And then the other part is that, do you mind when the short fiction is not so short, like when it's like very long? Like, is that okay with you? Because I break up a lot of stories into multiple parts because I'm like, oh shit, this is going on forever. Like, these people aren't going to read that. Let me know about that. So anyway, I mean, there's a lot of advantages if we break away from the HTML format of the newsletter, okay, which is what it uses right now. I mean, there's a lot of advantages, and you'll find out about some more of them in this week's Sovereign Tech Prime episode. But yeah, if you could send me some feedback, you could post underneath this in Patreon, in the Patreon post, just comment underneath. You could send me an email about it. You can, of course, the email bbs@sovereigntech.com. You can private message me on Patreon. Let me know what give me thoughts on the newsletter and how you feel about getting away from the HTML, from the fancy HTML format of it, and how you feel about like what features are in it, or what gets featured in it, as well as like, length of the stories and everything. Just, if you would, give me your thoughts on it, and then, I'll run this all by the editor, and myself, and we'll talk about it. So anyway, and maybe at some point I can tell you who the editor is, but we'll see. Speaking of emails, we will, on the Sovereign Tech Prime episode, I'm not going to talk about it here. On the Sovereign Tech Prime episode this week, we will be talking quite a bit about what they're calling is an e-fail, with the issue with PGP and email clients. I'm going to say this, take a little bit of a breather, okay? Because it's not as dire as people think, okay? It's not like, oh shit, everything's broken, which a lot of news sources were claiming. No. Okay, but we will go into detail on that coming this Saturday, and it'll be good to do it this Saturday because a lot of the fixes might be available, and then I can give you the links for all of the fixes to what's going on. But it's really, really not as dramatic. I mean, it's legit, but it's not as dramatic as a lot of news sources are claiming. So anyway, okay, so we'll get into that, like I say, on Sovereign Tech Prime. We've got other shit to get into in this episode. All right, so we do have a couple questions. We are actually going to talk about some email when we get to one of the tech questions here. But boy, we got some nerdy stuff to get into first. And then later on, I've got like a little topic I want to bring up with you, based upon some questions that I had gotten that I was going to discuss in the Sovereign Tech Prime episode. But anyway, we'll wait for that. Okay, so this is. Let me read this. Hey, Stallion, I've heard you rip pretty hard on modern Doctor Who, Game of Thrones, and new BSG, which for those that don't know, new BSG means the Battlestar Galactica from the aughts. That was just horrendous. Sorry, I already started. What gives? While they're not perfect, I think it's some of the best stuff out there right now. Do you actually have a point, or do you just hate anything new? Okay. So this is going to actually lead into a comment that was made, or a comment made on the community tab on the Patreon page, which I love it when people make use of that, because I always see those. Just like I always see your Patreon messages and everything, and like Patreon is a place that I'm consistently checking. You know, I don't do Facebook. I don't keep an eye on Twitter so much. I mean, I kind of do, but Patreon is where I'm always watching things. Why? Because there's money involved, frankly. So, but okay, to answer the question, yes, I have a point. Like, I mean, there's a reason that I actually can't stand those shows. And I'm not going to cover all that again because I've talked about it way too many times. Okay. A lot of it has to do with, this isn't true of Game of Thrones, but I'll say with Doctor Who and new BSG, is that it makes no sense to me why Doctor Who is cool now, but Doctor Who with Sylvester McCoy wasn't cool back then. You know, wasn't cool when it was first running. Like, I mean, and it's not that it's just cool. Like, it's fine. Okay, so nerds like something new, whatever. I mean, not a huge deal. But that's not how it's working. Like, everybody loves these shows, and you know, these shows wouldn't exist without their history. And I think maybe that's really what it is, or. I know that's what it is. It's the lack of respect for history of the genre. That's what it comes down to, you know? Like, without the original Battlestar Galactica, a lot of people wouldn't have watched the new Battlestar Galactica. I mean, the same bullshit that Netflix pulled with that shitty Lost in Space remake of theirs. If it didn't have the name Lost in Space, they wouldn't have had as many people go to watch it. You want proof? Altered Carbon is 5,000% the show that the show that Lost in Space is, and Altered Carbon's ratings were shit compared to Lost in Space, or ratings, or, you know, like watching numbers and whatever. I mean, not that Netflix releases all that information all the time, but it's what equates to ratings for Netflix. And Lost in Space got talked about way more than Altered Carbon did. But I mean, like, it's night and day. And I think Netflix gets it. Like, you know, people will see, oh, new Lost in Space, it's a known quantity. And so people are going to go and watch it. Even though it's not Lost in Space at all. Like, it's just fucking not. It's not even that great. Okay. As for Altered Carbon, was fucking amazing, right? But nobody watches Altered Carbon, not because there isn't so much to it, or because there's too much to watch. I mean, shit. I mean, yeah, there's a lot to watch out there, no doubt. But, you know, people obviously stopped and took the time to watch Lost in Space. They didn't stop and, you know, to take the time to watch Altered Carbon. So it's to the point where, I mean, and this has been a thing for a while, where you just take a known name, you know, Hawaii Five-0, I don't know, Battlestar Galactica, you take your pick of it. And that way you get kind of a guaranteed opening audience that, I mean, your show might be pretty good, you know, but people won't watch it if they're not willing to take the time. One of the ways to get them to, you know, make it willing for them to take the time is to make them think that it's related to something from their childhood or something from the past, or that has some kind of, you know, faux historicity or actual historicity. It's faux historicity when the new content isn't paying fealty to the original content. Then, you know, otherwise, because then it's just bullshit. Like, you know, the new Battlestar Galactica didn't take any of the really great stuff that made the original Galactica so amazing. You know, like, I mean, it's not even, there's barely a point to calling it Battlestar Galactica. They're not related at all. And so my point is that, look, if it's not an actual remake, and I'm not saying it has to be shot by shot like remaking Psycho or something, right? But I'm saying if it's not gonna like be 90% of what the original show was, it's a new show. Give it a new fucking name. I mean, it's different because it's not like this shit's, when we're talking about like Battlestar Galactica, right? Now, Doctor Who is actually just a continuation. I'm just still pissed off that I got beat up over liking Doctor Who, and now everybody can fucking like Doctor Who. That's, when I was a kid, but now everybody can like it, and I think that's bullshit. And the show, genuinely, I can honestly say that the show was better back in the day than it is now. But regardless of that, okay, with Battlestar Galactica, it's not like, we remake things, right? Like you remake classic novels. Like how many times has Moby Dick been made into some kind of movie, right? Or, how many times has a Bible story been, rehashed and blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. Like that's okay, because there's a lot of, the stories with that kind of antiquity and age are cultural memes, right? I mean, like everybody kind of gets it, whether they've read the Bible or not. People know about Samson, or they know the story of David or whatever. So it's so ingrained in our culture, as sadly a lot of the West is, our cultural Christians, unfortunately. It's so ingrained that you keep remaking it because, like, again, it's a cultural meme. It's like it's there whether it got made or not. Now, Battlestar Galactica is not really. I mean, you could say it's a pop culture icon or something, but it's not really a cultural meme. It's not something that like has created new terms in our, in our language or something like that, or that it's something where. It's not some like classic heroic tale that is just a part of the makeup of society or something. It's just not. Okay, so, it's not something that lends itself to being retold in new ways because it's not like a classic story. It's not something that's like foundational to our society. It's a story that was made, actually when the new Battlestar Galactica originally came out, it wasn't even 30 years old? Barely? No, I don't think it wasn't even 30 years old because it came out in 78 and that was 05. So it's not even 30 years old. What the fuck are you doing? Like completely remaking it like it's some kind of legendary story in our society. It's not. I mean, I wish it was. It's legendary to me, but not to society. Like you should have just been paying respect to it and just do like an updated version of it more or less. But no, instead you come up with this entirely new show. But it's bullshit to use something that's not, again, when it's not like, I don't know, the story of Jesus or something, why the fuck would you, try to remake it? Like, I don't know if I'm explaining my point very well, but bottom line being, it's bullshit and it's a stupid fucking cash grab. Of course, we all have to realize that all of this shit is cash grab, right? I mean, at the end of the day, and of course, I think most people recognize that, but it's not so much about the art, not anymore. It can really, and this is one of the reasons that I do like older shows. Why? Because now it more or less is about the art. Because now it's whether or not it can stand up on whether it was objectively or that, some subjective metrics allow it to hold up and give it purchase in our minds. Okay, it's not about the money anymore. It's about, okay, it's out there. There it is. What are we going to do about it? Like, is it still worth watching 20 years later, blah, blah, blah. And if it is, then it gets held up as a work of art. But while it's on its first run, it's a cash grab. That's what it is by these networks. And that's how this shit gets made. Yeah, I understand. I really do understand that. Okay. We're not talking about, Hollywood can make what's called prestige pieces. And I think they can even make prestige shows. I think Amazon is engaging in making prestige shows and not looking to make a buck off of everything that they're doing. Okay. You can make prestige stuff because, it's big with the critics who are art critics. And so it's meant to be artsy, right? And it can become a big deal and it doesn't have to make any money, but then something else has to make the money on the side, whatever the hell that happens to be. So Hollywood can make things genuinely for the art of it. It doesn't always make stuff for the money. Like it really doesn't. Okay. At the end of the day, it's to make a kind of a balance sheet look good, to have like artsy films that win Golden Globes and that helps them make money in the end. So you could say it's always still kind of about the money, but I'm just saying that initially some things aren't made as a cash grab. Okay. But most of it is. Most of it is meant to be a cash grab. So, yeah, that's part of the reason I like older stuff, because now it's not about, trying to get people talking at the water cooler. It's not about making money off of it. Now it's just out there. It exists. Is it good? Maybe, and if it is, then, fans can get behind it and can kind of like really make it their own, because the studios are out of the fucking way, and they're not just like pulling stunts to make money off of a show. So now, do I just, do I hate new stuff? No, there's lots of new stuff that I love. Maybe lots is the wrong term, but I like new stuff. Plenty of it. For example, The Expanse. One of the best shows. I mean, we're only, like half into the third season. I think it's one of the best science fiction shows ever made, bar none. It stands right up with Blake 7. It stands up with Babylon 5. It stands up with any of the Star Treks. It stands up against all of them. Like, I mean, it's not the best show ever. Nothing's going to unseat Babylon 5. It kind of can't, because Babylon 5 was in many ways the first, just like Star Wars is the first, for a lot of things in cinema. And so, not a lot of things can't top it, in whatever varying metrics, that people want to judge it by. But so The Expanse, I mean, phenomenal show. Like, I have no arguments. I have no complaints about it. Not really. I think it's fantastic. So no, I can love new shit, but it's got to be fucking amazing. It's got to be that good, and most stuff isn't. But I mean, there's other shows. The Magicians is great. The Librarians, that's an enjoyable show. I mean, yeah, there's good TV out there, but the funny thing is that in the social circles that I frequent, I've never, over the years, even when I was more active on social media, I've never seen anybody talk about those shows. I don't really see people talking about The Expanse. I don't see people talking about The Magicians. They're all busy talking about stupid fucking Game of Thrones, or they're talking about whatever. And I think they're doing that because a lot of people are just kind of trying to market themselves, right? Like they're making comments based on, I don't know, like Rick and Morty's great, and everybody kind of talks about Rick and Morty, but Rick and Morty that's a cultural phenomenon. Okay. I mean, it really is. Again, Voltron, the new Voltron, like there's tons of new shit that I absolutely love. Okay. But for whatever reason, it's new shit that most people aren't talking about. And like I said, everybody's just being asshats talking about Game of Thrones or fucking Avengers or whatever, I don't know what else to say. Like, I don't get it. There's this great stuff out there and nobody's talking about it. And it's not just like people, even really, news sources don't talk about it, but then they're all full of crap too, because they're all just trying to get clicks. And so they're talking about whatever they think is popular or what they're being paid to push is popular, by the studios themselves. Yeah. So anyway, movies, are there new movies that I like? Yeah, there's quite a few new movies that I've enjoyed. I'll go see new movies. I like Black Panther, fine. I'm not going to go see Avengers, but I like Black Panther. I review the DC animated films all the time, and I can't think of one I didn't really like. There's, how about two of the best movies I've ever seen came out in 2017. Two of the best movies just ever that could easily invade my top 10 of greatest movies of all time. Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman and The Greatest Showman. Both of those movies, fantastic. Fantastic. Do I see a lot of my friends talking about them? Not really. It's not my fault that people, I don't know, that they just buy into. I mean, and, maybe here, okay. Maybe it is. Maybe it's the difference between people that work remotely or work from home and people that have to go to work. Because when you have to go to work, you have a certain corporate or work culture, and maybe you want to feel, and I understand, you feel a need to be included and to socialize and whatever. So you got to talk about what all the normies are talking about, what all the average, the mundanes and everybody are talking about. So you watch, Game of Thrones, which is, that's the total opiate for the mundanes. You want to talk about a really great show in that vein of Game of Thrones? Let's talk about Spartacus. Spartacus Blood and Sand, one of the best shows ever done. In fact, hell, I'd put that at number 2 right underneath Babylon 5. That's a modern show. I thought it was fantastic. Is anybody else talking about it? No. Except for like John Campea on his podcast, I've never listened to I hear Game of Thrones this, I hear Battlestar Galactica that, Doctor Who this, and and almost never hear people talking about The Expanse, talking about Spartacus, even talking about The Magicians. Like on Security Now, I guess they talk about it. Barely ever heard anybody talking about like Halt and Catch Fire if I wanted to get out of science fiction. I enjoyed that. Well, the first couple seasons of that show I thought were pretty good. Never hear anything about it. I just don't. Yeah, I love new stuff, but apparently it's the new stuff that other people don't fucking watch, and I don't know why. It's great, and it's not even cheesy shit. Like, it's genuinely great shit. I can list off objective metrics as to why it's great. So, anyway, yeah, I have a point, and no, I don't hate anything new. There's lots of new bands that I love. Oh, but the music might not be a new style. Oh, shit. See, that's the thing, right? I mean, it just... entertainment tastes to me always feel so high school, and they never seem to leave that kind of mentality. Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. I mean, like I was saying earlier, you some people have to go to work, and there's like a certain culture that they have to buy into there. When I work from home, like I can consume whatever I want, whenever I want, more or less. Like maybe I could have it in the background while I'm working or something like that. And I'm not boasting at all. I'm really not. Believe me, there's been times over the years where I wish I was going to like some kind of corporate job, that maybe would have a better paycheck or something like that, right? Or more guaranteed, is what I mean. But not that I want to leave, I mean, I love being home with, with Stephanie and whoever, all day long. I think that's great. But, I can consume whatever I want, whenever I want, and I don't have to fall sway, especially now that I'm off of social media pretty much. I don't have to fall sway to the tastes of the masses, because that's what it seems like most people do. And what a pity. What a pity. So anyway, all right. So there's that. Now, that leads into actually a comment that was made on the community page, okay, on the Sovereign Tech Patreon page. And this is with the announcement that, let's see, The Expanse has been canceled. Sci-fi is dead to me now. That being SIFY, SYFY, not science fiction. Yeah, so I heard about this, but already apparently if you've been watching season 3, and I know actually probably people listening to the sound of my voice now, I imagine a lot of you have actually been watching The Expanse, because I've already gotten comments from others based on other episodes that I've done about The Expanse. By the way, Stephanie loves it too. I mean, it's just we both, we can't wait for new episodes whenever they're going to come out. My understanding is that what's going on here is that there is a separate company that really owns The Expanse, and the Sci-Fi Channel was pretty much the money man and distributor. But now the separate company that owns The Expanse, or the estate, I'm guessing, of the two authors that comprise James S.A. Corey, they held on to streaming rights and like pretty much any distribution rights, I think, outside of network television, or outside of outside of a network, because Sci-Fi is a cable network. And so because of that, here's what I think happened. Okay. Here's a couple theories on what's going on with The Expanse. I mean, yeah, Sci-Fi Channel, fuck them. Okay. Like, in fact, we talked about this, I think, on Sovereign Tech Prime back when like Childhood's End first came out, when they made that mini series that was and when the first season of The Expanse came out, not the CEO of Sci-Fi, but like the guy just underneath was coming out and saying, look, we know we burned, all of our actual science fiction fans that watch this network. We've burned you over the past, 10, 15 years. And so we're going to try and make this up to you. The Expanse was one example of that. And it worked. I mean, The Expanse is awesome, right? I mean, and it's hard science fiction. It's not just great science fiction. It's hard sci-fi, which you don't get much of that, even whether in movies or, in cinema or on the TV screen. So it's funny because now it seems like they're really backtracking on all that. I was like, oh, good. I hope that this guy actually means this and that they're going forward. And honestly, even though Childhood's End was kind of at least they were doing something from, Arthur C. Clarke, so great. And the fact that they're doing, and that the Expanse was done so well, okay, cool. It looks like you're on the right path. Well, now it appears they're going back on their word, because if you're not going to keep going with the Expanse, well, then yeah, fuck you. But 2 points on that. And look, I mean, I agree. Sci-fi's dead to me, or, SYFY, SYFY is dead to me as well. Okay. But 2 reasons that I think this happened. One is that if you look at like a lot of the effects and everything going on in season 3, that show is getting expensive. And if you read the books, you know what's coming. The show's going to get a lot more expensive very soon. Okay. So like season 4 is going to get stupid expensive for a lot of reasons. Okay. And again, if you know the book series, you know why that's going to happen. And I'm not, because I don't want to give anything away for anyone that hasn't read the books. So there's that. So I think Sci-Fi Channel's like, shit, this, yeah, the show's great. Yeah, the ratings are okay, but they are not going to justify the cost for what we're going to be doing in season 4. So I can understand that. At the same time, I think the Sci-Fi Channel is probably looking, based upon all the rights to shows and whatever else that they have, I'm sure they're looking to create a streaming service. Well, they don't have the rights to stream, to stream The Expanse. Amazon does, and I forget who else might have it. But Sci-Fi Channel, if they created their own streaming network, they wouldn't be able to, stream one of their flagship shows. And so they're probably distancing themselves from that for some reason. Now, because the rights aren't held by the Sci-Fi Channel, another network or, studio, whatever, could come in and pick up The Expanse and run with it. Okay, because the S.A. Corey estate, holds the rights and all that. So I don't think that this isn't the end. It's not like with Netflix, where they really controlled Sense8, right? Like they had complete control of Sense8. It's really not like someone else could really come in and just take over, because certainly people offered to, so that's, yeah, I mean, that's where things stand. So I could see where Amazon actually could pick up The Expanse and just run with it. They already have streaming rights for it and everything. I mean, it's hop, skip, and a jump to just put the money forward. And I think that would do very well for Amazon Prime Video's watching numbers, in my opinion. I think it would increase it, and it would do, in a lot of people's minds, that would give Amazon some clout. So I think that's going to end up happening. I don't think the show is going to be completely dead. I think just another network or Amazon or hell, even Netflix will swoop in and say, okay, no, we'll make season 4. We'll do season 5, blah, blah, blah. I could more see Amazon. I think they're the ones that are going to do it, because Amazon is banking pretty hard on like epic science fiction right now and epic stories, Lord of the Rings, the Culture series, and so on. So that's what I think is going to end up happening there. Speaking of Netflix, this was another thing that I got. And I had heard about this too, but I'm glad people are bringing these things to my attention, whether I hear of them or not. So Netflix is coming out with, now I'm a huge fan. And in fact, boy, on Patreon Q&As, like a couple of years ago, I remember talking about this. I'm a huge fan, so Stephanie, of the Fast and Furious series and of movies, which, by the way, they have the Hobbs and whatever, The Rock and Jason Statham are getting their side movies, their side quills or whatever, which I think is really cool. I'm excited for that. So that's happening. But anyway, there's going to be an animated series on Netflix for Fast and Furious. Thing is, it's a bunch of teenagers and all that. It's probably going to be a pretty kids show. So like in one sense, that's cool. In the other sense, what the fuck? Give me like a serious, not a teenagers thing. I get it. I know why they're using teenagers. It's the money grab, right? But yeah, I would have dug it if they were doing like, I don't know. Well, I mean, we're getting the Hobbs and Shaw movie, but I don't know, have a Hobbs and Shaw animated series. Like I'd be down with that, or whatever, or, give us a Toretto. I mean, I think like they said that it's supposed to be like the nephews or something of the Torettos. I don't know. Like, it's cool, and I'll give it a chance. I'll see what it's like, but I'm worried it's just going to be like totally appealing to kids, and not in the cool way either. Like, I remember growing up, there was the show James Bond Jr. It was a cartoon, and that was actually a lot of fun. That was like that was really cool, and it kind of worked, even though you never saw James Bond. You did see James Bond Jr. But I don't know if they're going to exactly be able to pull that off. I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. Okay, so I've been talking a ton of entertainment. We got to get into some tech here. Okay. And the question, all right, I'm not going to read this whole thing. The basic question is, what email provider to use? Yeah. So this is an important question. And in fact, it got asked before eFail, came out, but I want to address it quick. So, but one thing to mention is that eFail does not affect Proton Mail. So maybe people want to consider Proton Mail, which I did an updated review of that on a Sovereign Tech Prime episode recently. Maybe some people would want to check out Proton Mail again and make that your email address. I'm not going to recommend LavaBit right now because they still haven't like fully released their products. It's very, very weird what's going on over there. I don't know what the fuck the deal is. Okay. GMX was my longtime pick for a mail service to go with because they offer unlimited and it works with Mailvelope, which is a great, it's an extension for Chrome and Firefox that allows you to easily create a PGP key. Of course, right now, people are sweating PGP because of eFail. But again, I think it's a little overblown with what's going on with that. We'll talk about it more on Sovereign Tech Prime. But GMX has the other problem. All right, here, let's break this down. My argument used to be for GMX, using gmx.com, was because its servers were overseas. And so there is some red tape that needed to be gone through to get access to their mail servers. Okay, so if you're looking for, if you're not going to go so far as to make your own mail server and all that with your NAS or something, then what do, right? So GMX was always like a really great option because it offered a lot of what Yahoo and Gmail and Outlook would, but it wasn't one of the tech giants, So thing is two things. One, GMX has servers in Kansas now. The other thing is now with the Cloud Act, there is no more red tape, as far as like getting access to data overseas. So that doesn't really matter anymore, that sort of thing. But yeah, if you don't want to, and like some of these emails said, if you don't want to use Gmail, great. I agree with you. Don't use Gmail if you can help it. Microsoft has, we're in fuck Microsoft mode, but they've been very, what's the term I'm looking for? They have not been very consistent with what they've been doing with Outlook. Like they used to offer Outlook Premium, gone, or more or less gone. And that was really disappointing because it looked like they were doing something really special. But now we can very clearly see Microsoft is more interested in taking over IoT and going with ambient computing than they are with like really even bolstering their own fucking, their own services. So Outlook.com, I think, out of the picture. Okay, I wouldn't rock with that. Yahoo, need I say more? So what options are out there? Well, I mean, there is RiseUp.net, but you have to get, you have to have people recommend you. You have to have two people like invite you to use RiseUp.net. But, not everybody is interested in, their email being attached to like an activist platform like RiseUp, among other concerns that they may have with RiseUp.net, which I can understand, and some of which I disagree with you on. Others, okay, whatever. But so in my opinion, the best one to go with, and if you're going to get a good one, is today you're going to have to pay, because that if you're getting one for free, that there's a privacy cost that comes with that, right? There's a privacy cost that can come with it either way. But I think to get a really great service, and Outlook Premium actually kind of convinced me of this when Outlook Premium was the thing that Microsoft was actually pushing. When you pay for email, you get some bennies out of that, and there's some, there's some peace of mind that comes along with it. So my recommendation for email pretty much comes down to there's about only one that I really, really be willing to recommend. I mean, Proton Mail, well, there's pay for plans with that, but Proton Mail is I think is pretty valid now, especially how they handle the e-fail. That's pretty impressive. But I would recommend fastmail.fm. That's where I would go, and then just do things right with your desktop client as far as that goes. But fastmail.fm is actually really great about importing stuff from Outlook as well as from like a lot of other email services. So if you're hosting a domain name, say with Microsoft or with Google or something like that, they have really great instructions on how to transfer everything over through them. But you have to pay, I think it's like $50 a year or something for a decent mail package, mail service that they offer. But I think it's worth every penny. I really do. Fastmail.fm is the direction that I would be looking in, unless you want to go with Proton Mail, which that comes with its own. That's a unique setup as well. So it depends upon your needs. But those are the directions I would go. I'm not really going to recommend GMX so much anymore. I still think if I had to choose between Outlook, Yahoo or Gmail or GMX, I would still choose GMX. So if you've been using GMX for a while, keep using it, then fine. But if you're looking to get away from Gmail or Outlook or something like that, fastmail.fm, that's what I'm recommending, and pay for it. And it's fine. Okay. Because think about it. Which of these services should be free unless you're hosting it yourself? None of them. So, it's okay. It's okay to pay for an email address. All right, let's go on to got a last bit here, and then we'll get into our album of the week, and maybe I'll get into a little topic. So I'll read this. Hey Brian, it's a shame to hear that some of your patrons are whiny little bitches. Oh jeez. Well, I don't know if I'd call them that, but well, no, actually, some of them, like a lot of the more conservative ones that are just constantly complaining about the show. Well, that's different. But anyway. I love the show. Don't totally agree with everything, but if I agreed 100% with anyone, I'd be worried. Right on, man. That is the attitude. Very interested to hear about your thoughts on Lost Civilizations. I've been listening to Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock lately regarding these ideas. Very cool interviews on Joe Rogan Experience with these guys discussing the subject as well, if you want to check it out. However, if you do start up seriously talking about ancient aliens, I'm out though. Great shows. Keep it up. Appreciate it. Yeah. And this person actually responded after, because I did talk about ancient aliens a bit, and then they're like, oh, it looks like I am going to have to kind of check out ancient aliens or whatever. And you just kind of laughed. So I'm a fan of a lot of these guys. I've actually listened to Joe Rogan episodes where Graham Hancock has been on. And yeah, I'm not like a huge fan of Joe Rogan, but whatever, that's fine. I know he's popular, and a lot of my listeners, there's a lot of cross-pollination going on. So, and boy, if anyone ever wants to try and reach out to Joe Rogan to have me on his show, I'd love to, as much as I'm not like the biggest fan of. Look, I don't really have a problem with Joe Rogan. I think a lot of what he has to say is really great. The thing is that like he has this wildly popular show, but it's not really him, right? Like, or a series of co-hosts. Like, he's just interviewing people. And so, I know he brings some stuff to the table too, but like, I think when it's a show that all it does is interviews most of the time, and it's not actually the host, just laying out, blood, sweat, and tears, half hour to 2 hours every week, it's not as impressive to me. And yeah, obviously, I have a bias because that's what I do. Okay. But it's not as impressive to me. I want to hear an intelligent guy give me a cohesive whole, or a gal, hell, even better. Okay. Give me a cohesive whole of what's going on. When it's just these fucking interview shows, it just doesn't do anything for me. That's just me, but I have enjoyed interviews. I've heard also Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock and whoever else. I do enjoy hearing those, and they're, obviously they're solid in what they put out there. And it's important that they get it out there. So yeah, Lost Civilizations, I'm going to be talking about this subject. I did the book review for Bloodline of the Gods just this week. I'll be getting into this more often because I think it needs to be covered. And now it's to the point where I think the conversation really can't be shouted down so much anymore. I think we've gotten to that point, and that's good. That's only a good thing. So yeah, this is going to be a subject that'll come up a little more often on Sovereign Tech. Not that I ever shied from it. I mean, there's a reason that people knew, about my passion for it, because I've talked about it before. I mean, years ago, I talked about how they thought they found orichalcum, which is, metal talked about in Atlantis and ancient Greece and everything. I mean, I've talked about, a lot of these subjects over and over again. It gets people very excited. And so, yeah, I'm going to make it a little more of a thing, on the show in the very near future here. So thank you for that feedback. And yeah, I'm, again, I recommend to people, check out all these guys. They all have, if anything, little tidbits. Like you said, I mean, I don't agree with 100% with people 100% of the time either. But you can always get those beautiful little nuggets of wisdom, from a lot of these different, different people in their, in whatever their subject speciality is, So yeah, right on. Just bringing that up, and yeah, just saying that the whole lost civilizations conversation is going to become more of a thing, and feel free to ask questions about it. Believe me, like I'm very well versed. It's a passion subject of mine. And Stephanie and I, and even, like Ellen, I mean, we've talked about these things. There's been many late nights talking about this stuff. So, I really, really enjoy talking about it. And I'm glad that, actually there was someone sent in a story that they wanted for Stephanie, Ellen, and I to talk about, in the next episode that we do, which will be coming up, where, well, I don't know if I want to spoil it, but like the idea that you talk about getting into aliens, that literally octopuses could be aliens, that like through panspermia and everything. I mean, it's very, very interesting stuff, but anyway, we'll save that. We'll talk about that later. Okay, let's get into album of the week here. And this album of the week is one that I said might end up being album of the week. And it was the new Powerglove album. It's called Continue with a question mark at the end. This is fantastic. I mean, just fantastic. It just came out on May 15th, 2018. It's been a few years since these guys came out with an entirely new album of material. It had actually been like 6 or 8 years since they had, and it was worth the wait. There's some awesome, the albums. So last week's pick, album of the week, was Saturday Morning Apocalypse. It's not as good as Powerglove's Saturday Morning Apocalypse. Okay. But it's good. They did a couple songs that I think are two of the best in video game history, both from the same game, actually. They did the intro music for Mega Man 3, which I think is the most epic video game music. It even beats Zelda, in my opinion. It opens up with the whole all that. Of course, they do it with metal, and it's beautiful. They also did, from Mega Man 3, they did the Snake Man theme, which is, when you hear it, I won't do it to you, because you'll hum it forever. It's been the story of my life. Mega Man 3 was, well, Metroid was like the first game I kind of got with like my own money. That was my birthday money. Mega Man 3, I ended up getting like I don't know if it was the following year or a couple of years after. That was like the first game that I got that was like brand spanking new, where like it was money that I kind of earned. Like Metroid and Mega Man 3 are two Nintendo games that stick out really, really high in my mind, because of that, because like you remember the first time you're exchanging cash and it's your own, and and all that, and that's really something. So those two games are really important to me. But anyway, yeah, and I think Mega Man 3 is still the best Mega Man game ever. Like, I mean, it's even better than Mega Man X. I know some people want to say Mega Man 2. I disagree. When you don't have the sliding ability or some of the charging abilities and rush and all that, like, yeah, Mega Man 3 is fucking awesome. And of course you get introduced to Proto Man in that. There's some other cool, really cool, there's the Kirby theme gets done in it that turned out really well. They do Under the Sea, as in from the Little Mermaid. So it's not like all necessarily video game stuff, but I thought that was an interesting pick, and it worked. They have an entire suite, a 10-minute suite of music from Chrono Trigger that is beautiful. They do the Ninja Gaiden theme that was great. I mean, again, it's not as intense and as fun as Saturday Morning Apocalypse, but this is a solid little metal album. Okay, I mean, just really, really solid. I was very, very pleased with it. So, and I pre-ordered it. I mean, I paid for it. This isn't something that I found on the torrents or anything. I was like, well, Powerglove's got a new album coming out. You got my money, baby. Here we go. And again, I say this all the time. As much as I may torrent shit, I still buy music. Like if I got to buy music, I buy music. If I have to buy CDs to get a soundtrack, I'll buy the CDs because they don't do a digital release. Fine, I'll buy the CDs. I don't care. And if I really love something, even if I did torrent it somehow, I'll still buy it. As much as bullshit as the system is, it is the funnel to how certain people get money, or how certain artists get their money. So I'm happy to do it. Hell, I just bought some Paul Herzog albums. I'm a huge fan of Paul Herzog's soundtracks that he did in the 80s. Then he went off to be some like music theory teacher, and then he released a couple albums in like 2014 and 2015 and everything. I picked those up. They're phenomenal. They're great. They could have been album of the week. The two Paul Herzog albums that I grabbed, where he's just making music like he did back in the 80s, for Kickboxer or Bloodsport, because he did the soundtracks for those two movies, and he did other movies too, but those were kind of his big ones. Fantastic stuff, wonderful. Gladly give the money, especially for that kind of stuff where it's like more of that rarer, albums that most people wouldn't think of and that aren't getting a bunch of like radio play or hell, even concerts or something like that. Then it's all the more important, I think, to, hash out the cash for them. So anyway, got a few minutes left here. I just want to talk about something. A potential attitude to go with going forward. So I talked about over the past few weeks how I had that catastrophic solid state hard drive failure. I mean, it was bad. And it's really made me like kind of rethink, okay, how do we make sure this sort of thing like really never happens again? And the attitude that I've had, and the solution more or less that I came up with, is that, well, I'm never buying a computer that doesn't have like a full on, good old fashioned platter hard drive anymore. Fuck solid state, no more. While that's still the route that I'm going, I did end up picking up a new computer recently. Like this is, I mean, I've had a lot of thoughts going on around this, because the computer that this happened to wasn't cheap. Okay. like it was a high end. I mean, it was an Asus ZenBook 3. Understand that while it's not, a powerhouse, like a Lenovo, ThinkPad Carbon X1 or something, right? Well, it's not that kind of powerhouse. It's no slouch, and it's a premium fucking product, like premium product. All right, it is as high end as you can get. All aluminum body, the whole thing, everything you can imagine, in a premium computer, like that's just kind of on the lower end as far as specs go. It's there. All right, this device was meant to take on Apple computers. It's as good as it gets. And it failed harder than any cheap-ass computer I've ever bought. And that's a problem. Okay, now, interestingly enough, I find this very interesting, because I still blame Microsoft. I really do, okay? But, well, anyway, I don't necessarily blame Asus, but here's the thing. Interestingly enough, Microsoft is holding back the installation of version 1803 of Windows 10 of the April update on devices that have Intel solid state drives. Now, I don't think I had an Intel solid state drive there that was. But they are really concerned that something in that update is fucking up solid state drives. And that makes me wonder, because again, the ZenBook 3 that I had, not even a year old, barely 6 months old. And it's having that kind of catastrophic failure. That's crazy. And that's not the only thing that was going on with with the ZenBook 3. The fan started to, make its little whirring sound. Not that it was like on, but that it, was making that sound, which I can fix. That's fine. And I did. But like for a premium product, that just shouldn't be happening. Okay. So I'm kind of to the point. And I kind of seesaw on this, like I always say, there's no such thing as a $200 computer. There's a $600 computer with like ad tech or something in it. Right. And I still think that that's largely true. Okay. Unless you're buying a computer that's using like really outdated hardware within it. But the point that I'm getting at, instead of arguing what computer to buy, blah, 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 blah. Here's the thing. Here's what I think you might want to consider. Here's like a personal computing philosophy that you might want to go forward with that I'm working on and really considering. And that is, have your computer more be either like your NAS or even like your, some kind of 8 terabyte hard drive. Like, don't become it's kind of like cloud computing, but it's your own cloud that you control, and that you're choosing the hardware, and that you're buying hard drives, that back up all of your data, that that you can get repaired and that don't cost much to get repaired, or that you could even repair yourself, which solid state drives are not that, right? You want to get a good old fashioned hard disk drive. And so, yeah, like this is kind of the idea to go forward with, in my opinion, is to not so much like worry about the computer, because all these computers today, I mean, they're going to fail. They're not built to last like the old ThinkPads or anything like that. I really think it's to the point that they're just all going to fail. And just rely more on having your, kind of your own personal cloud, your own little hard drive or whatever. Like I said, can the hard drive fail? Yes. But if it's a mechanical hard drive, that's easy to repair, either yourself or it's inexpensive for like a hard drive company to fix for you. Okay, that's a possibility. And that's the thing, is to where if you're going to rely on the internal solid state drive or something like that, I feel like you're just rolling dice when you do that sort of shit, and who knows, what kind of update. Then if it's Microsoft's fault, well, then they push out updates, and it could happen to any computer where it could crash. Kill your solid state drive and kill your data and fuck with you. So I think it's really, this is an attitude to go forward with. So from now on, like me personally, I'm not going to think so much about the computer. I'm going to think about my NAS and my backup drives and making sure that's where the money's really going. Yeah, you need a certain amount of performance if you want to do gaming and a lot of shit like this. I understand that. Okay. But it just, like, it really sucks. Like, if you spend a good amount of, and no matter, within a year, the fucking thing can fail. I don't know. Like, that does not bode well for things. So, yeah, I can't see doing it. I picked up, and I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to do a hardware review of this, but I picked up an Asus VivoBook E203NA. And this is a really low end, like 11-inch computer. And I want to see how far I can go with this. How much can I, what can I get away with this? I have other laptops. I have a big laptop, as far as like, cause this isn't going to be a gaming machine, obviously. But, as far as like portable equipment, I'm debating how much one needs that much power going around. And if you rely more upon your NAS to do the work, or your, external storage or whatever to do the work, well, this is a direction that things were going before cloud computing was a thing anyway. Was selling you the big, Western Digital selling you the big 2 terabyte drives and all that, which at the time, we're talking like 2009, 2010 was huge. That was crazy, but that was the direction that things were going. And then, cloud computing, or not cloud, the abstract of cloud computing has been around since the 70s, right? With thin clients and all that. But you get my point. Then that whole concept kind of took over, where I'm just going to go backwards on it, and I'm not going to so much like think about the computer, because the computers are, even in your own home, can be all over the place. But what matters is having like control of your central hub of data that all of those computers can get access to. And it's impractical to have like exact copies on every one of your computers, right? So rely more on your NASs, rely more on your external storage. Like I have, like right next to me, next to my studio computer, there's a giant 8 terabyte hard drive. Okay. Yeah. That's going to be, the home of a lot of stuff. And it's one single drive. I know the score behind it, and if it fails, it's very easy to get that back up and running and fixing. Okay. And do I have a backup of that 8 terabyte hard drive? Oh, you bet your ass. So it's something to consider, is to not spend so much money on the computer, but to spend it more on like your own personal storage, or maybe like on a NAS and things like that. It's a different philosophy. I'm not saying that there has to be only one philosophy on how to, do personal computing, but something to consider. So I'm going to leave you with that, and got more content to come out this week. This is it for your Wednesday Q&A. We ended up talking just a ton of geeky shit, but I believe that this Sunday will end up being the will end up being the live Hangout Q&A, but I will send out a confirmation post on Patreon about that. But more content to come, and all kinds of good times, some really interesting stuff. Actually, there's a couple episodes coming out for Patreon only that I'm really interested to get out to you and to do. Some of them I have to do. But anyway, that's it for this week. I will see all of you on the other side.